Hello and welcome to A Cook Back in Time. If you think of Victorian England, there's one name that crops up again and again: Charles Dickens. He was born in Portsmouth but spent most of his life in London and the South East. In spite of being born into poor circumstances, his father was sent to a debtor's prison. He became a wealthy man through the sale of his 15 major novels and countless short stories. And yet he only ever owned one house, a house that he admired as a child and in which he was to die: Gads Hill Place at Higham near Gravesend. And it's in Dickens' very own kitchen that we're cooking today, and I meet a very special guest, Cedric Dickens, Charles's great-grandson. Today on Cook Back in Time, we'll have a guided tour around Gads Hill Place, be cooking up a Victorian seasonal spread: parsnip soup, roast goose, mash with apple sauce and a traditional Victorian plum pudding. Plus, Cedric Dickens will concoct a smoking bishop. When Charles Dickens' father worked in the dockyard at Chatham in Kent, he used to take his son on long country hikes. It was on one of these walks that they passed a house called Gads Hill Place on the Gravesend Road. The young Charles was very impressed. Coming from a family that was plagued with financial problems, this building seemed to be part of a very different world. His father noticed his interest and said to Charles that if he were very persevering and worked very hard, he might one day live here. It was a dream become reality. He bought the house in 1856 and lived here until his death in 1870. Gads Hill Place is now a private school, and its headmistress, Anne Everett's, going to show me around the house. Anne, I know I've never been here before, but I feel as though I have.
I expect that's because you know the famous engraving, which was a sketch done by Luke Files, the famous Victorian artist. He was illustrating Dickens' last novel, Edwin Drood, which was produced in instalments. He came down here, he didn't know Dickens had died, he was shown into the study, and he was very much moved when he realised that Dickens would never write again when he saw the desk and the empty chair. He did this quick sketch, and this engraving, which is known all over the world, was done from that early sketch.
And it is called The Empty Chair.
It is indeed, yes.
Now this is your study. How do you feel? I mean, do you get any inspiration from the great man working in here?
Well, I do feel that I'm very privileged, yes, and as I get nearer to retirement now, I feel particularly privileged. I think on a day-to-day basis, of course, one is running the school. I have the desk over there and I glare at naughty pupils over the top of it. But I do have a great sense of happiness being in this house. People often say to me, isn't it rather spooky? And I say, no, it isn't. I'm quite often here alone after dark in the winter when there's nobody else here. And I always say that if Charles Dickens did appear in his study, I think we should have a very interesting conversation.
Anne, I must say that I don't think I've ever seen a staircase like this.
No, well, it is, I think, unique, and it's a very Victorian, very Dickensian staircase, because when Charles Dickens moved into the house, he removed every other balustrade of the Georgian staircase, and he had some wooden panels inserted, and his daughter Katie painted them.
And from the outside, the house is pleasant, but it's not over-impressive. He was a wealthy man. Why do you think he bought this house?
Well, he first saw this house when he was just a small boy, and his life was very insecure, both financially and geographically. And clearly the house made a tremendous impression on him. And he remembered it. We know that he remembered it because he wrote about it in A Christmas Carol. He described it long years before he knew he'd come to live here. And then, in rather fairy tale fashion, many years later, in the 1850s, when he was looking for a country residence, this house came on the market.
Did he make any alterations to it?
Oh yes, he made a lot of changes to the house over the years. He always agonised about the amount that it cost, but he nevertheless went ahead. The family used to tease him because he always claimed that every improvement was the last improvement. And this sadly was the last improvement, this wonderful conservatory. And apart from the floor, we have had to restore virtually everything. But it now looks as it did in Charles's day.
Except, to me, the incongruity of the lanterns.
Dickens himself hung Chinese lanterns in his conservatory. It's one of his last recorded acts. He had them sent down from the Chinatown of his day in London. So when we restored the conservatory, we managed to buy some real Chinese lanterns made of wood and painted glass, and we've hung them here again. And what do you think this is?
Looks like a rather large sideboard or buffet or something.
Well, in fact, it is a dumb waiter, and these are shelves which go up and down between the kitchen and this floor, and there's a rope pulley. And Dickens had this put in so that his servants didn't have to stagger up a precipitous staircase with all the trays for the dining room. And there's a rather nice story about this dumb waiter, which shows Dickens in a particularly caring light. One day, the rope broke and the shelves crashed down and fell on a maidservant's arm, and Dickens, instead of being worried about the broken crockery, was very concerned about her, and he dashed down and he asked her if she was hurt, and she was, so he put arnica on the bruise and he gave her a glass of port wine to restore her.
That's a lovely story, and it leads me into, I think I ought to be getting down to the kitchen to see how they're coming along.
Yes,
and
indeed.
Thank you very much. Leslie Topping. Hello.
Hello.
You're the school cook here, aren't you?
Yes.
And today you're doing for us a Dickensian meal. Do you enjoy cooking this kind of food?
Oh yes, yes, I enjoy cooking anything.
And what's your best source of Dickensian recipes?
Well, we always use Mrs Beeton because she was the most prolific writer of the time.
Good old Mrs
and,
Beeton.
she seems to be the most authentic.
What's our meal today?
Well, today we're going to do a Christmas meal. I'm starting with parsnip soup. We have plenty of chopped parsnips and carrot, onion, a little butter, cayenne pepper, white pepper and salt. And in this jug there is some stock which I made earlier. It's just a good general stock made with beef bones and chicken, vegetable trimmings and fresh herbs from the garden.
How do we make our soup?
Well, in the saucepan I've got some butter just melting, and we're just going to sauté the parsnips, the carrots and the onions for about 10 minutes until they start to soften. And then we're going to pour on half of this stock now. And just give it a stir, and then I'll put the lid on, leave it to cook for another 10 minutes or so until the vegetables are really very tender. Right, now I'm leaving the vegetables simmering, and I'm going to make some croutons to go with the soup. In
They
the
had
saucepan.
croutons then, did they?
They did. They weren't actually called croutons. In Mrs Beeton, she refers to snippets of fried bread.
Oh.
Or snippets of toasted bread, but I took that as meaning croutons. There's some butter melting in the pan, and we're just going to add some small pieces of white bread which have been cut up, and then it's just going to be sautéed until they're golden brown and crispy. Pour the vegetables in their stock into the sieve, and then using a ladle, because it has a nice rounded bottom, we push the vegetables through the sieve. If you can hang on, because it's quite hard work.
I know it is.
This does take a little bit of time, but you get a nice texture to your soup when you make it like this.
If you were to make the soup and put it through a liquidizer, would it spoil the taste?
Oh no, not at all. No, it's perfectly acceptable to do
We're
that.
just
and
doing
it's-
it the hard way.
We are
The
doing it the hard way.
Dickensian way.
This is how they had to do it, because
had
they had
to.
no mechanical means. They had very lowly paid kitchen assistants who would have been paid a penny a day, perhaps, to do this sort of job. Then the next stage is to put in the rest of the stock and bring it back to the boil.
When do we add the seasoning?
I'm going to do that now. We've got cayenne pepper. I'm just going to put a pinch of that because it can be quite fiery.
I was surprised to hear that you're using cayenne.
Oh, they had quite a number of different types of spices in the Victorian times. Just ordinary white pepper as well.
Spices and herbs and seasoning.
Yes, and a good pinch of salt.
And that's it, that now, what?
That,
just gets
that will now be
heated up?
reheated and will be ready to serve. We're just going to serve it into the bowl. Nice portion. Dress it with a little cream. This is just single cream. And some parsley for added colour. And the croutons, which we made, will add a nice crispness. We'll just sprinkle a few of those over. And there we have it. Mrs Beeton's parsnip soup.
And you chose goose for the main course, why?
Well, goose was the meal that Bob Cratchit had for his Christmas dinner in the Christmas Carol. So we felt that that was quite appropriate. And of course, goose was a very popular meat in Victorian times.
Quite greasy.
It is very greasy, yes. There's a thick layer of grease under the skin, but we shall prick the skin to allow the fat to escape, and just a sprinkling of salt and pepper. But of course, we will be stuffing it with a good sage and onion stuffing.
So I'll take the goose over
Thank
here.
you.
Wow, it's heavy.
Yes.
And the stuffing.
Right, yes. Well, for the sage and onion stuffing, we need 4 onions, breadcrumbs. This is the minced liver of the goose. That's going in as well. Some melted butter, an egg, a whole lemon cut into slices, and of course, plenty of fresh sage. The onions are here. They've been boiling for a while, just in a little salted water. Putting in the sage and the minced liver from the goose. We just stir that around. That needs just a couple more minutes to cook, so that the liver is just cooked enough, and the sage leaves have begun to wilt, and that takes off some of the harshness of their flavour. What we need to do is strain them through this sieve. So we're going to take the onions now, and we're going to chop them up quite finely. And now chop up the sage so that you don't get a large mouthful of sage leaf, which isn't perhaps terribly pleasant. A little sage.
Quite bitter, isn't it?
It is, yes. And then we'll put in the breadcrumbs, the melted butter, and the rind of a lemon. We will bind it all with an egg, and we'll mix this all together. So there we have the finished stuffing. So now if you could pass me the goose, we're going to stuff it. The first thing I'm going to put into the goose is this lemon, and I'm going to push that right to the back of the cavity of the goose, because the lemon in there will steam as the goose cooks, and it'll impart a wonderful lemony sort of flavour throughout the flesh of the goose. We're also going to put in one of Mrs Beeton's special secrets, and this is a glass of port with mustard, cayenne pepper and salt in. That's going to be poured into the cavity as well. So I'm now going to stuff the goose with the sage and onion stuffing. So we just use a spoon, push it right down as far as you can. I'm going to save that little bit for later. We just tuck the legs back in, make a small slit in the skin, just above the rump or the parson's nose, and push that through. It then holds the cavity closed so the stuffing doesn't come out. And that will just go into the oven just as it is, and it will take about 1 hour and 3/4 to roast.
Well, there's our cooked goose. It looks very appetising. Well, what are you going to cook for pud after the break? Well, we'll soon rejoin our expert chef, Leslie Topping, as she prepares for us a Dickensian plum pud. I'm in the gardens of Gads Hill Place. Dickens used to walk here every day, and it's here I had the privilege of meeting his great-grandson, Cedric Dickens. Cedric, it's a great honour for me to meet you. Now, I know you didn't know your great-grandfather. He died long before you were born. His influence on your life has been big?
Yeah, tremendous. It really has. Even way, way back when I was tiny, I can remember how dangerous it was to have a name like Dickens. People expected so much from you.
What actual books did he write in Gads Hill Place?
Well, he certainly wrote the last one, Mystery of Edwin Drood. He wrote certainly Great Expectations, which is that lovely book about Pip, and All the Marsh Country, which is just literally 2 miles from here.
You wrote a little book called Drinking with Dickens. Why?
That was years of research went into that book.
And some tasting.
And a lot of tasting. In fact, I made my wife Elizabeth taste every night. We tasted some ghastly drink, and if we had even a sensation next morning of ill feeling, we jettisoned that recipe. But there's some lovely recipes in that book.
In fact, I'm going to ask you to come into the kitchen and make one from that book.
I'd ought to do that. Can we do Smoking Bishop?
Yeah, sounds interesting.
It's a great drink, and my favourite winter drink.
Right, Leslie, now into Mrs Beeton's unrivalled Christmas pudding.
Yes, that's right. She actually had several recipes for Christmas pudding in her book, starting from a plain plum pudding for children, a good plum pudding which had slightly more exotic ingredients, an excellent plum pudding, and this is the best pudding in her book. It's called an unrivalled plum pudding.
This is probably the one with the alcohol.
Oh, yes.
Right, let's have a
indeed.
look at the ingredients.
Right, well, we've got various types of dried fruit. There's sultanas, currants, raisins and candied mixed peel, which has been chopped up. Then we've got bread crumbs again. There's a mixture of brown and white bread there. Suet. Then there's eggs and dark moist brown sugar. And the spices here, we've got nutmeg, cinnamon and ginger, the rind and juice of a lemon and some ground almonds. Not forgetting, of course, the brandy, a tumbler of brandy, just to give it that little alcoholic touch.
Oh, let's get going.
Right, well, it's a very easy recipe. All you do is just tip everything into the bowl. I'll just start by working it together. It does take a while, but as I said, the kitchen would have had quite a number of people working in it, from the scullery maids up to the waiters and the doorman and the butler, and everybody would have come in. I think they called it Stirring Sunday, and it was a particular date in the year when they made the pudding, and they would all come and have a stir and have a wish. And of course, by the time the pudding had been passed round to everybody, it was very well mixed.
That looks as though it's just about stirred enough, doesn't it?
Yes, I think it is now.
Leslie, I've made Christmas puddings for years, but I've never known how to do the round ones.
Right, well, to do those, you need to boil it in a cloth. So if we
Yes.
just put that to one side, what I've got here is just a piece of sheet, and I have buttered it. It just needs a little more buttering around the edge. Then you just sprinkle it with a little flour, and that stops the pudding sticking. Push it down into the bowl. This just helps with the shaping. And then we're just going to pile in the pudding. Then we just form it into a nice round cannonball. So once your pudding's in there, just bring up the corners one at a time. And all we do is just grab it like that and squeeze it into a nice round, pat it round into a nice shape.
That's it?
That's the pudding made. Now it has to be boiled, and a pudding this size needs to boil for 6 hours.
Well, while Leslie is making our Mrs Beeton's Dickensian pud, I've joined Cedric because you're going to make us a drink out of your book.
I am, Jan.
Dickens Drinks.
It's been waiting for all day to do this. Smoking Bishop, my dear. Shall I show you what we're going to do?
Yes, please.
We have 5 oranges and 1 grapefruit. Now, half an hour ago, I, in fact, popped those in the oven, and mighty hot, and they should come out golden brown. In fact, they have been slightly burnt on top, which is good. It's good because it gives it that sort of extra little tang, as you will taste later on. Now, this is the difficult part, Jan. You're going to help me here. What we've got to do is put them on there, and we prick them with 5, 6, 7 cloves. This is where you've got to be very, very quick.
It's a lovely aroma.
Isn't it super? Now, we have done that. We get a bowl, and we get that bowl, which was over there.
Ah, this one here. Oh dear.
That's all right, only a bottle.
That bowl?
That'll do beautifully. Now, we haven't done what we said we were going to do.
What was that?
And that was to put this little bit of hot wine into there to melt the sugar. But it doesn't matter.
Oh, good.
Because what we will do is we'll put 1 bottle of wine onto there and stir.
Inexpensive wine?
It is actually the cheapest wine that you can buy, which you know is good.
Yeah.
The only thing about it is it's got to be strong. So 12.5% is the sort of minimum. Now, if we give that just a quick stir, if we had done it properly and that had been warmed, that sugar would have been beautifully melted. As it is, it isn't, as you can see.
A bit granulated, but never mind.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You'll see how lovely it looks. Now, we pop the fruit in it. Now, what we're going to do is to rough squeeze the fruit into the juice. So out of these oranges, I'm taking about half the juice. We've got 1 bottle of wine in there. We're now putting the other bottle of wine in, and we're going to put it through the sieve into the other bowl. There's enough there for us tonight. So now we're going to add the port.
I've just been in bed with a headache for 24 hours.
You'll never get a headache on this, I promise you. So there is your smoking bishop, but it isn't smoking because it hasn't been warmed. Now, I have found over years and years of experience, I'm drooling at the mouth with this, that if you put it back into bottles, empty bottles,
Yes.
and then put those empty bottles into hot water, you'll get them hot without boiling them. So you're not losing the alcohol. Great-grandmother. My grandmother taught me that.
The one who was a
The
teetotaler.
one who was a teetotaler. Now, so we're going to fill only 1 bottle because what I have done in my perspicacity is I have already filled 2 bottles of a brew I made yesterday
Yes.
so that we can taste it.
Oh, good. To your teetotal grandmother,
God bless her.
santé.
Santé.
Well, I think Leslie's really done us proud.
Beautiful.
I've had a wonderful day. I really have. Charles Dickens may have died 130 years ago, but his spirit has been kept alive by so many people, including Anne and Cedric and Leslie, and it's really wonderful. Now, Cedric, food featured quite a lot in his novels, so would you
Especially at
read us
Christmas.
out?
May I do that? I have just the final thing. We've talked about Bishop, we've talked about this, that and the other, particularly children. And if you remember, the Scrooge at the end was a good Scrooge, and he was a super Scrooge. He wanted to do everything possible. It was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well, if any man possessed the knowledge. May that be truly said of us and all of us. And so, as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us, everyone.